Welcome to the Grand Shorts, a part of the Grand Podcast. The Grand. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grand. The Grand is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. This episode is part of my shorts format. It is episode number 7 in my communication shorts series. When you podcast, you sometimes need to shake things up and try to do things differently. I have launched a short format some time ago, but it needed some rethinking. So here it is, my first shot at serving you vibrant short podcast episode with strong engagement. Kasper Ravnsted Larsen is an old contact from Brussels. He's a journalist and has been working on a generic communication approach and strategy outline for organizations. We decided to build a podcast series rolling out this strategy in short and concise episodes with concrete examples. With this, I also want to get closer to you, dear listener. We want to get your feedback and for you to share your experience and insights on the topics we discuss because it adds depth and reflection to the benefit for all. So, what will I do? Well, I have ordered 10 mugs with the Grand logo, and you can win that mug. The next month we will release episodes in this series, and every month we choose the best comment or question posted on LinkedIn to win an exclusive The Grand mug. You can't buy this mug, you can only win it. And even better, by the end of the series we will make a listener panel episode where all 4 winners of the mug will be invited for a podcast recording where we discuss and exchange on communication strategy within EU R&D funding. Now, let's get going. This is the 3rd batch of episodes, and here we will have 3 episodes zooming in on the theme of how to get people to click your newsletter when you send it out. We have 10 bullets we'll run through during the 3 episodes. Here in the first episode, we first look at how to define your purpose, digging in and knowing your audience, and not least the importance of maintaining a consistent format. On the episode side, you'll find our script so you can follow our discussion. You'll find the link in the episode notes where you listen to your podcast. Please enjoy. The Grand. It's time to pick a winner, and Kasper and me were supposed to do this together, but just like last month, we didn't manage. So I will do it myself, just like last month. And this time there actually is one. There actually is a winner because, as you might, some of you might remember that follow this series, our strategy is not working. So I tried something else this time, and I tried to tag people's names. I put a question myself into the post and said, look, hey, you guys, specifically, do you have a comment? Do you have anything to say about this? Because you're definitely someone with an experience within this. It's difficult. We didn't get many, but we got one, and of course he will win the mug because he actually did have a nice comment that qualifies to win. So this is independent communication consultant in innovation, Laurent Decany. You won the Grand mug, Laurent, and the mugs, they have arrived. I will take a photo when I'm back in Denmark next week, so you can see it. We will forward it. I will exchange with you on your address so I can send it and forward it to you. And why did Laurent win? Why did you win, Laurent? That's because your question, actually, or your comment, was highly relevant because you questioned whether actually legal media is still one of the highest ranking channels for projects or not. So questioning about where do you actually want to throw your attention when you have something you want to communicate about EU R&D funding projects, where do you need to go with this? So thanks for this. Thank you very much. We'll stay in touch. I will forward this. Congratulations. And now on to the next batch in this communication series. Here you go. Welcome to the Grand, the EU funding podcast. Today, we will continue, in this episode, we'll continue our short format. Kasper and I, we're sitting here and running you all through how to make a good, strong communication strategy when you work with EU R&D funding. And we've reached to the 3rd batch of episodes. And as promised in the second batch episodes, we are now going to have, it's going to get much more concrete now. Going to focus on newsletters, on concrete things, concrete output, and how to deal with that. But first, of course, Casper, welcome.
Thank you, Niels.
And as modus operandi with these episodes, in the first of the batch, just a few words about who you are.
Yes, sure. So I am previously a head of communications at a EU funding office in Brussels, representing a Danish region. And before that, and after that, I guess, journalist by education.
Indeed, you are. And obviously, that makes you a natural for a batch of episodes like this. And I, of course, accepted to do something like this with you because I know you're extremely cool. And you know a lot about these things. So it fits a lot with what my listeners, they calibrate with and what they want to hear. Of information and feedback and things to reflect over when it comes to communication and EU R&D funding. Casper, you're the boss, as I said in the pre-recording here. As always, we have 10 points we need to go through. And we have batched in the first episode here 3 points. And so what's the headline and what are we going to talk about the next 25, 30 minutes?
So I thought, well, in general, we're going to talk about newsletters, like you said. So let's start by, in this episode, trying to figure out how can a newsletter be used, and why would you want to write a newsletter. And I guess, to jump right into it, first of all, why I have taken or chosen newsletter as one of the first sort of concrete products that we talk about on this small series is because, well, first, it's a format I know a lot about because I've done it in many contexts. I do a specific newsletter, a very targeted audience right now, even in my current job.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, because I think it's a great format where you can not only update on a sort of running basis, but you can also create a atmosphere and a feeling of community with your audience. And surely you can do that on social media as well. But if you have a number of subscribers to a newsletter, only those people see this. If you post something on Facebook or on LinkedIn, it might go anywhere. And there might not be a problem with that, but this is a very, very easy way to control exactly who reads what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And to get them to interact with you. Reading a newsletter, subscribing to a newsletter shows engagement in your specific or your specific message or your specific area of research or whatever it is. So that is the first point today. Actually, defining your purpose. Yeah. So what is your why would you want to do a newsletter? Well, first of all, newsletter, yes or no? Is that is that the right channel for you? I don't know, but this is why we're trying to explore, I guess, throughout this series, that we'll go through a few things and then people can sort of pick whatever makes sense to them. So obviously, like we talked about already in a previous episode about strategy, like knowing your purpose is obviously going to be your guideline to content, to relevant content, and to knowing, well, defining your audience, I would say. So you should start by asking yourself what it is you want to achieve. And if you want to inform, if you want to engage, if you want to drive action, newsletter might be the way to go. Sorry, what did you want to say?
So, and here, because this is probably the most difficult thing, to keep your nose in the track, right? So you make, let's just say they make a strategy. They listen to this great series we have here, and they sit down and they follow the bullets that we've been running through in this batch of episodes, and then Monday hits, right? So they move on. The timeline goes on, and then let's just say they have a monthly newsletter, and then after 6 months, suddenly it starts to slide sideways. Yeah, vis-a-vis the purpose that has been defined, the strategy that has been made. Suddenly, other things starts to slip in. You start to lose the eye from the ball, so to say, on what is it actually we decided to get into the. You understand when when time passes, and if you're not if you don't keep reminding yourself what is the purpose of what is the main things we need to focus on in this newsletter. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a flag. It's just a red flag to make people realize that this happens all the time, that you make a strategy and you follow it in the beginning, and then you start to forget, or you start to lose some of the important points that you decided when you made it. You understand the point?
But this is why we did 3 episodes in the beginning about a communication strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is your, as I think I used the term treasure map back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the treasure map that always leads you back to the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a generic document. It can be altered along the way, but in that you also define your communication channels. So let's say you decide on doing a monthly newsletter, like you said, it will be defined in there. So revisit that. I'm sorry to use that little bit
Yeah.
term, overused term. But I think as we will go through this, the whole newsletter part here, I think it should be clearer whether or not newsletter is a format that you want to use in your overall communication.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So this is not to say that, of course, because I think even for people like me, things slide. So I'm completely aware of this. But if you make communication in a certain way a priority, then it should be priority.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Right.
So a couple of you always throw us tips and examples.
Yeah. Now, so what I think I could do is like describe a little bit what we did in what I did in Brussels back in the day.
Yes.
So we did a newsletter that did not have a steady frequency. It was, to begin with, at least, sent out whenever we had news on the website. It was used for, I guess you can say, drag people into to read the articles on our website. Because if you're a small institution in Brussels and your main audience is back in Denmark, and most of the your part of your purpose is to inform back in Denmark what we are doing, especially because nobody knows, then the process starts elsewhere. But so to actually get people to subscribe. But once you have subscribed, the subscribers will be dragged to your website to actually read what you think they need to read or know. So it was used, and then secondly, we used the website as sort of a knowledge terminal or platform, but that's a different episode. Later, we also added a weekly sum up newsletter on Thursdays or Fridays to sort of like the whole purpose of the office was to obviously facilitate for stakeholders back in Denmark to participate in EU projects. So what we did was we bundled, for instance, like partner searches from other countries, translated them into as concrete, tangible Danish as possible,
Hmm.
because often these, as you know, proposals are never fully developed or very, what do you say, like, well, tangible
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
word for it. So that's what one thing we tried to do. Secondly, I, as a journalist, would go and do interviews. Actually, if we had visitors from Denmark, interview them about what they actually think they influenced by going to Brussels,
Hmm.
in terms of like also partnerships or projects, or well, just basic lobbying,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Uh, and it could be like interesting stakeholders from the European Commission or something like that, or just, hey, here's a new framework program. This is what Horizon might look like in the future.
Hmm.
Something like analysis on that or something like that. Because it's consultants working in municipalities and regions back home, or like especially businesses around the region, they would have zero clue about this. And that is not really their fault. It's just not on their radar
Yeah.
because it's not supposed to be, really. But that's why we entered. And then we decided to do a newsletter in newsletter format, because this is how to reach them directly in their inbox whenever we think there's something relevant to them.
Uh, uh,
And we even segmented them into like the three main strategic areas of the office, so that everybody didn't get spammed with everything.
hmm.
Because people used it primarily in their professional, or received the newsletter primarily in their professional roles. So, as interesting it might be to hear about new education funds in Brussels for the private consultant who works with climate change, or like in
Hmm.
on an everyday basis at work, still it would be nicer to just receive whatever is relevant to your work if you're at work, right?
Hmm.
um so this is me also saying, like, jumping into the next point, basally about
Yeah.
like knowing your audience and segmenting your audience.
Yeah, so let's just winding up the first. So this everything you just said now. This is a matter of so taking purpose and then seeing everything through that prism
In a way,
in that filter. Yeah,
what is it you want to achieve,
yeah,
and who do you want
yeah,
to achieve it with or from?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
on to the audience. Know your audience. Second block.
So that's just the continuation of that, really, because I already touched upon it.
Hmm.
Um, and once again, we talked more about audience in one of the first episodes. But let's just say you are participating in a EU-funded project on healthcare innovation,
Hmm.
which I actually did. So this is going to be an example from my own personal experience. Again, usually you need some sort of communication plan in your, like, in your project, which is probably part of the, you know more about this than I do, but sometimes it's part of the demands, right? Like the overall, like,
Yeah, yeah.
criteria for the project, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, so obviously what you could do here is like use a monthly newsletter, for instance, to inform whoever in the, say, partner regions or partner universities or whatever, who work in this area, what is going on in this project and what you actually learn. For instance, if you go to Slovenia and look at a hospital there, what kind of innovative agendas do they have? This might be a way to reporting this back to a larger group of people than the ones that you actually brought there, like
Mhm.
on like, like a project visit or whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously part of that, getting people to subscribe, is mouth to mouth, email to email basis, because it is very, very, very narrowed down to whomever in a certain region works on this professionally, right?
Mhm.
But so it's not like you. you make a post on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, subscribe to this," because then it might be pretty random who actually subscribes.
Yes, and if we make it generic, it's if someone subscribes to a newsletter, we are away from the years 20, 15 years ago where people just subscribe to all kinds of newsletters. If people subscribe to a newsletter now, it's because they really want to read what's in it. Because we know now to untick. Would I like to receive this newsletter? No, So if you take on this, so the audience has chosen themselves. So you looking at a group of people that are on that list that wants to read what you send them.
Mm.
That's a good chance that they will might not read everything. They might just skim through. And if you keep up a good content pace, so to say, in those, they will also mention it to colleagues within the network, whatever, that hey, here you always have good tips. It always send us in the right direction and so on. So I can recommend you to tick this box and go in and get this.
Like the typical subscriber for that particular project was somebody who said, "Oh, but how do I get how do I know what you guys are doing next time and whatever?"
Yeah.
There's a newsletter, right? And then they subscribe. Um, well, we had a Twitter account as well, so they also followed that. It's not to say that newsletter is the uh, is the is the only way to be successful. It's just it's a way to keep very specific information channeled to very specific people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you are going to get some, and that's a side point that I think is a little bit important to make. You are going to get subscribers probably that are within, like, in the next circle, just outside the core.
Mhm.
Like in a university, you might be aiming your newsletter for researchers, but you might get interested students subscribing and reading as well. So remember to sometimes also accommodate them a little bit with the content.
Yeah.
Just a small side point, but I think it could be like to have people keep reading, like to get people to keep reading, accommodate their interests.
And I would say from my own experience, I send out an email every Monday in connection with the podcast when I release an episode. And so I do know a little bit about how it, so what I'm doing, at least from the strategic side of you, watching, like follow the growth of the email list and checking unsubscribers, because unsubscribers, that's your that's your canary in the coal mine. If you which way you're going, huh? So if you have lots of people come in and then they leave, then it means they don't like what you're doing. I have very few unsubscribers, but that's because my listeners, they know exactly what they get. They know exactly that they would like to hear when I release an episode. So that's the format of my. It's not a newsletter; it's an email. I try to put a little bit of news in the beginning, but it's more information. Now there's a new episode of the podcast, right? But it's what I want to say with it. Keep track of the background data to see if you're hitting the spot.
But we'll come back to that. But
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
but definitely like tracking your activity is key to understanding your audience.
Yeah. All right. Is that one? Did we cover that one?
We did, yeah. Third point here in this episode is the format. I think once you decided on a format, I'm gonna say something that sounds very generic, right, and
Mm-hmm.
very sort of strict and limiting now, but it will like when you hear it, still think, of course, there is room for flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, when I say consistent format for a newsletter, it's
Mm-hmm.
much like branding. Stay on message, same visuals, same, like, be consistent. People should know exactly what it is that hit them when they see the subject line,
Exactly.
for
Exactly.
instance,
Yeah.
at the first word of the subject line,
Mm-hmm.
every single time.
Yeah.
And of course, you can, I mean, as you just said, we just said before, yeah, you start tracking and then you find out some stuff doesn't work, right? So you got to start rethinking some stuff. That is, of course, the limit of consistency. But still, this is much like branding. This is much like any other communication product or channel, if you will. Like, people need to know what's coming for them. If you do, like you do, for instance, with the podcast, when you do these small series, like,
Yeah.
remember to keep reminding people every single time that this is part of this series,
Yeah.
because they're not gonna remember that. People listen to a number of podcasts during a week,
Indeed.
or read a number of newsletters during a week. Just need to keep every legal. Okay, so this series is part of this series, and the title is. It might be like, you might be a series under a series under a series, but just keep it consistent and keep it clear. Everything in the newsletter, especially the subject line and the sender, email sender. Like, where does it come from? This, like, who's
Yeah.
sending the.
Listeners of this, especially regulars of this podcast, they will know that I keep a very strict consistency. I call my style relaxed professional with my guests, and also if I have solo shows and so on. I have a certain way of doing things that's not too strict or what do you say, like too square. Yeah, but I'm very, very focused. I know it's everything is thought through, my dear listeners. Everything I do with my communication has a purpose. There's a reason why if my subject line in the email you receive, if you're on my email list, it's the same every time. New episode, title of it, full stop. You get it. So every Monday morning, you get it in your inbox, and you know when you see it, that's the Grand. And that's not all kinds of other ways. And when you open that email, it looks exactly the same every single time. You have my banner that represents the episode with my guest and so on, with my graphics that looks exactly the same every single time. You don't have to decode anything. You know it. You see, that's a guest, that's the name, that's the title, full stop. And then short little paragraph about what might be of news within the R&D world, and then the episode text below the link to the episode, full stop.
But that's how it should be.
Every single Monday, the same thing.
And it might be boring, and you might feel like, nah, I need to get creative. This is just. But then you run the risk. I'm sorry, you just run the risk of confusing your audience.
My playful area, that's the first part of the email where I put some news, or where I inform if there's something going on with the podcast, new things coming up. But I do this consistently, so my readers, the receivers, they know the ball game of that email. They know this is where he plays a little bit. There's some information, and then it's structured below. It's give myself a frame to have some flexibility, and the rest is absolutely strict to the point, to the like how I've been doing it for 100 and at this point probably 140 episodes.
So in the newsletter I'm doing now, I mean, because you mentioned structure, this is I've kept pretty much the same structure for over 2 years.
Yeah.
And now, only now, have I started experimenting a little bit with some of the formats, but they still come in the same order, because first of all, it's a good order, if I'm being honest. And why fix something that isn't broken, first of all?
Yeah.
Secondly, why make your own work harder? Why force creativity?
Yeah.
So, and if you can start by being creative and like working some of the formats, the smaller formats coming later down in the email, people won't notice as much, as long as the main structure is still the same.
Yeah. And that's why, dear listener, you will also notice, if you do have newsletters that you're ticked in and you actually do read, so if these senders, if they change something, they inform. They make sure that make it very, very clear. We have decided, we have worked the last 6 months on changing the structure of this newsletter because it's important for our strategy. We think that it works better like this, but they clearly inform you what the new format is going to be, or why they have changed the graphics, or why they have changed maybe the format inside, and so on. They make it very clear. If they don't, then they. I'm not saying they're not good professionals, but they might lose people with that.
So that's another good point. I think in general, I would say that after we do all these communication episodes, I think I already said audience we're going to take away in an earlier episode, but I think clarity is another, because I think that's, I mean, it might sometimes feel like you're talking to a child when you write something out, spell it out. But
Yeah.
but important thing here is to remember you're writing to busy people.
Yeah. Don't waste that time.
They don't need to have their time wasted. They need to know exactly what's going on straight away. And by informing them, hey, we changed the format for this and this and this reason. Okay, fine. I'll buy that and then I'll read on.
Yeah, you know what? Just as an end outro for this batch of bullet points here before we shut it and go to the next one. The guy that I'm using as a theoretical base for what I'm doing. I just listened because he run the podcast series on how to do a podcast, right? Just listened to an episode with him. He made it very clear with time. Look, if you do a podcast, you have to be aware of the fact. So take the number of streams you have, and then look at the time you have. So if you put things in there, you don't edit it out. That could actually doesn't make any sense to be there. Think of how much time that up with how many listens to it, and then you wasted how many hours you have wasted in aggregate on people's time. You have to think of it like this, because people, they don't live for your newsletter. People don't live for my
It's
podcast.
exactly the same with a newsletter. And there are websites where you can go and like copy all your text in, and it'll tell you how long it takes to read for the average reader. So you can even measure this before you send anything out in the edit phase, for instance.
And all this theory that we're telling you now, all this background, so how to do this, you might have noticed some of the newsletters that you are attached to. In the beginning, it says how long it takes to read.
Yeah, because this gives you an idea. Do I want to read this now or not, or do I save it for later in the evening where I need something, where I am anyway sitting in front of the television, not following what's going on there, but actually reading on my phone because I have time.
No, that was the outro. Gasper, let's shut this one down and move on to the next. So see you in the second episode of this batch. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grand. Want to win the mug? Well, find this post on my personal LinkedIn profile or the Grand LinkedIn site, share your thoughts or throw a question or give us some feedback. All the Grand episodes have their own site on the Grand website. You'll find the link in the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Casper's personal LinkedIn site and his communication company. Further, there will be links to the communication short series main page. Finally, you will find the script that we have used, so you can follow the examples and the structure of the strategy. Next up is the second episode, where we have a look at the content and how to make it catchy, making the actual content appealing, adding visuals and pictures, and not least the all-important call to action. See you next episode. The Grand.